Hi, welcome back. We are working on the next signature for our album, and I've got it all laid out here. I'm having some fun with this 4-inch die that I found on Amazon. So let's get to the base page first, and then we'll worry about all the little stuff. So this base page, the one I'm using is the one that has all the continents on it. On the reverse side, had some up here, and then this one's out of the 10 sheet double-sided core pack. This is measuring at 9 3/8 of an inch across, 9 3/8 by 8 3/4 in the height. Again, I'm inking with a distress ink called Stormy Sky. It's out of the Distress line from Tim Holtz. So this is what I'm doing here. On this page, I am making some pockets using that die. Now, if you do not have this die, it is fairly simple to do. If you're using a die or a punch that you have to get the looks and the appearance that you want, you're going to want these to measure at 4 7/8 inches across. Now, on mine, my highest peak is right there. So they're 2 inches. So this needs to be 2 inches by 4 7/8, and we're going to cut 3 of them. And then from scraps, I think that's upside down. Yeah, these look okay. Anyway, I'm using this piece. Remember, we cut it earlier, and I told you to hold on to it because we're going to use it for other things. So I trimmed out 3 of them. I'm going to stagger these pockets. I did not want to cut them down into a shorter size. So I'm going to stagger them. And they're going to overlap a little bit. But let's get something out here that we can use. So let's say this one. If you put something in here and you come all the way to the edge, it's still going to fit because it's going to go over the top of this one. And the same with this. The only one that's going to be unencumbered is this one here at the top. And I think I'm going to move these down just a little bit because I want some spacing up there for someone to be able to put in a card. This would fit, just going to stick out over the top of the album a little bit, and that's okay. It gives it character. And then what I cut and trimmed using these little cutouts, there's a page of them, and they're on this page that has this in the center, and then a second page that had this in the center, and I trimmed that out to go here on the inside, and I matched up the patterns so that I got the piece that's supposed to match to the back. So this is going to be for journaling, this will be for your photo, and this is going to go on the outside of it. And then these are just going to simply come in here and sit in the pocket like so. Not taking away from your ability to put other items in the pockets, but these would just be a nice alternative. You can still put a small photo here, and you can certainly put a small photo here. You could put some journaling here if you want. So I've got 3 of these. These each measure 6 inches by 3 inches, I do believe. Now, 3 by 6, and you're scoring them at 3 inches. So you're going to make 3 of these. And I chose all of the ones that had a lighthouse theme. So let's go ahead and let's get this put together, and then we'll get to our flaps. And I want to try and get these. Now, the other thing I'm doing is I'm using a thin strip of tape. It's 1/8 of an inch because I want to maximize this pocket as much as possible. So I am going to bring these in about 1/4 of an inch from each of the edges, and I'm going to bring this one up 1/4 of an inch off the bottom, and then I'm just going to drop this one down. I'm going to center this one a little bit more so we have the same space in between them, and then I'm going to go ahead and put them in, and I'm going to hold on to it because I've already got it laid out the way I want it laid out. So oops, I just moved that, but that's okay. Once I get this one in, I don't care if I move the other two around. Okay, let's go ahead and let's put this one down. And I'm going to hold this in place so that I can center this in between the two, coming in 1/4 of an inch off this edge roughly. Okay, now we'll put this one in. Quarter of an inch, and I'm trying to make sure that I've got the same spacing. There we go. And what's really cool is you can still see some of the continents through this. All right, let's piece these on. Nice little bit of contrast. We have not gotten very deep into the paper trimming, so what is available to accent is a bit limited at this point, but we'll have more to play with as we trim and cut into more paper. All right, let's glue these on. Now there are two sets of these. There's one out of the core pack, and it's double-sided. And then there is the set that's in the 22 maxi. Now I kind of mixed them up a little bit. I took these out of the core pack without really thinking about it. I should have probably pulled them both out of the big 22 maxi pad. But you can only use one side of these. So out of that core pack, you're covering it up. So there's, because you're covering this piece up. Sakes, where did that come from? So it's up to you if you want to pull them both out of the core pack and save these. If you save these, understand that if we use them again here in the album, you're going to end up needing some scraps to cover the back side. Nice little journaling spots. Tell the story of the photo attached. Okay, so there you go. The base page is done. Let's start to work on our flaps here. I've got kind of everything sorted. I just need to get this apart. Okay, this is going to be right over left, so that's where we're going to set the magnet. This piece measures 6 3/4 across by the 8 3/4 in the height. You will come in here and you will score this at 1/2, and then you're going to score it at 5/8. And then we're going to put this on here, and we're going to bring this right up to that 1/2 inch score line. As I'm demonstrating here, here's the 1/2 inch score line. We want this, let me get this down here a little bit better. We want this hinge, this gusset, to be on the top of this page. So I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to line it up. Push back on this to reinforce that 5/8 score line. And now for this side, this is going to measure at 5 1/4 inches across by your 8 3/4 in your height. And again, you're going to score it at 1/2 inch. And you're going to score it at 5/8. And just like we did here, we're going to bring the page right up to the 1/2 inch score line. And I'm going to push back on this. All right, now I really struggled with the seam that was in here, so I cut out fussy cut out two of the really small seashells, and I put it right there. I don't know if I'm going to regret it, but that's what I did. All right, so let's go ahead and I need to move this magnet. I may not have cut this one piece wide enough. So I'm going to put the magnet over here. And hope that this is going to lay proper. I can feel it right there on the edge. And it's not sticking. because of the undo. So I'll put a little bit of glue to mark my spot. I'll slide this off. And I'll put this over here. I'm right on the edge, but I'm bringing my paper up to here, so I've got good coverage. But because they're wet, the adhesive, I am going to put some tape on these to help secure them in place until the undo dries and the adhesive. Okay, there we go. So let's take a look at covering these inside panels. Okay, so this is the piece I'm using for the inside panel. It's this piece here, and it came out of the 22 maxi pads. So it's the one that's got the red coral here on the bottom. You've got a swirl up here. You've got a seashell over here. So I trimmed this side first because I really wanted this. I like that. And then I trimmed and cut the rest for the right-hand side. Now, there's no magnet on this side, so I'm just going to go ahead and glue this one in. Okay. I am missing a tool. Oh, for Pete's sake. I don't know what I did with it. Oh, there it is. It's way behind me. Goodness sakes. All right. So on this side, we're going to create a top and bottom tuck. I simply trimmed out a blue piece from scraps, and then I found this lovely little ornament, trimmed it out, and I'm going to set it right there in the center. Now I did put a row of my bubbly waves top and bottom, made it a little bit bigger. You can do that if that's what you want to do. And then I again used a real thin strip of tape, and I'm going to try and find the center to this. So we are at 8 3/4. So I'm going to be at 4 3/8 will be my center. So I'm going to be right there. Glue this little guy in here. It's so pretty. It's just, once I cut it out, I really liked it. All right, so then when you go to tuck something in there, you've got a nice tuck there, and then you've got a tuck here, and you can still commit a photo top and bottom. All right, let's go over here to this side. And I have a magnet here, so I'm going to use tape to secure this down. Okay, so that's gonna go, I'm gonna put just a tad bit of tape here on this side. Take this off. And I put tape on this side so that I would have security that the piece of paper is going to lay down and not have this popping bubble effect that I find distracting when you're playing with a piece of paper. All right, now cut we're going to do a belly band here. This measures at 1 1/4 inches across by your 8 3/4 in your height. Again, that will always be when I'm dealing with height, that will always be the 8 3/4 unless I shorten it for some reason. And I'm using thin tape to maximize the pocket. So I'm going to lay this on the bottom, and then I'm just going to line it right up next to that 5/8 score line that's right there. And then from the scraps, I took this piece, and I'm going to glue it in right here. And then I cut out this starfish, backed it on some blue cardstock, and I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to use this arm to help cover up that seam right there. So that's going to be a careful glue so that it doesn't glue all the way through. I'm just going to put enough on there to secure to the blue cardstock and not bleed all the way through. In fact, and then in my packet of stuff, and you might have it, there's a brass star, and I am going to use some glossy accents, and I'm going to glue him in place. Now, the stars, all these trinkets, come with a loop, so you can feed it through a chain or through some string or yarn, and I am snipping that off, so that's why you don't see it on mine. That's the underside, so I am going to glue the underside of the star. Okay, now I'm going to leave that open so this has a chance to dry. Let's work on this. We got a magnet. So on the front of this piece that I cut has the bus on it. And I cut to this because I wanted to keep this statement, collecting memories like seashells. I didn't want to lose any of these either, but this was the one I wanted to make sure that I trimmed to. So I trimmed to this first, to this piece of paper. And then I trimmed this for this one. And we'll get back to this one. Well, no, let me tell you what I did here. So I very carefully, if you look at this image, There is the top rack. I did not worry about cutting that top rack out, and I did not worry about cutting around this side mirror. So I just cut the bus out in this format, backed it on lightweight particle paper, chipboard, put on my foams, and then it's going to be popped up. Also on this particular page, you have an ephemera piece that says find yourself, and that's going to go on the top of this, because remember, this is going to be right over left. But let's go ahead and let's put some tape on the back side. My skin is so dry from playing with this tape that it is really sticking to my fingers. Okay. Now you can, if you want, you can cut another pocket. I thought about doing it. I would trim this up. You could put another pocket here so that you can have some tuck. And I might come back and do that still. So I'm just letting you know that that's a thought. Or you can leave this piece in here. All right, now let's carefully close this. I hope that's going to stay. All right, so here we have our bus. Now I'm going to glue this in place, and when I do, I'm also going to glue around this because I want this to stay down flat so that it's not popping up underneath of the bus. So let's go ahead and get that handled. I'm going to be busy here pulling all the paper backing off the foam pop-ups. I used a variety of them because I was running out of one and shifted to another. But then I have tiny spots that I cut these squares in half to fill in over here. All right, now we're going to carefully pop this right back where it came from. And what's really cool is this rack that's up here looks like it's now that it's kind of raised up off the top of the bus, And this side mirror really looks like it's a side mirror and not stuck here at the edge. So by doing this, it also had a really nice effect, and I am way too far over. I cannot, oh my gosh, I did not see what I just did there. Come on, let's see if we can get this up carefully. There's so much of it back here, goodness sakes. Be very careful when you're putting it in that you're covering the proper space. I messed up here. So all I can do is pull that off. I'm going to use the sleeve of my jacket here. Straighten that out a little bit. So where I fell short was back here on this back side. And I'll make sure that's lined up, that's lined up. There we go. Now it's in there the right way. And then this ephemera piece. Find yourself. We will center that right here. And we've got the bus, they're traveling along, we've got them on the seashore. We have the rest of the continent in here, the other countries. And then we've got our nice little pockets with our photo mats. Got a nice side tuck here, and we have a double pocket there. All right, let's turn it over and let's get the big tape out and get this mounted into the album. Okay, the perimeter is done. Now I'm going to grab my 3/8 tape and I'm going to put some support tape here on the middle back side. Okay, let's get this in here. It's going to sit here at the very edge, and we can still see enough of this, so I did pretty good this time. I didn't overcut it like I did on this one. All right, so I'm going to take this one off. Come on. And these two. I'm going to turn it sideways, and I'm going to come right to the edge. I'm going to use another piece of paper so I can see my edge real well, and I'm going to lay this down, making sure I've got equal distance top and bottom. I'm veering a little bit. Too much to the bottom. There we go. I'm taking this one off last because I want to make sure that when I press this in here that my gusset is going to lay straight up and down. I'm going to pull these out so I can give a good burnish. And I'm going to burnish up with the pattern because I don't want to snag those. Okay. There we go. Hey, thanks for playing along. I'll see you on the next signature. Bye-bye.